Hi everybody, how's it going? Uncle Rich here. We're here for another, this is the 1 hour of the week where you want to come, you want to take it easy. We're going to teach you some stuff tonight. Tonight's going to be an exciting show. Even though it's Monday and today is show number 14, and even though it's Monday and today is May 13th, tomorrow's my brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Nick! Anyway, tonight's show, we hit a milestone today. Well, this week, I'm sorry. We hit a milestone, and that milestone was we hit 400 parts per million on carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So we're going to, initially, that was my thought for the show. But what happened is, on Friday, I was sitting home on the computer, minding my own business when I have Fox News on in the background. And who comes on but Stuart Varney? Now, you guys know how much I love to hate Fox. Well, it's almost at the point where I love to hate Stuart Varney even more. And don't take this the wrong way, because I don't hate anything. Maybe Brussels sprouts, but aside from that, I'm just using the term hate so you get the idea that I'm not very happy with him. So anyway, Stuart Varney, the bonehead, comes on and he makes a ridiculous statement. And the ridiculous statement was about green energy. And it was a deceitful statement. It was wrong. It was almost on the verge of being a lie. But it wasn't. Because they can, and I'll show you how they do this. And I'm gonna blow you away because we're gonna give Stuart Varney the ultimate bitch slap today. I mean, we're not, and you know what? We're not gonna do the bitch slapping. We're gonna let him bitch slap himself. And we're gonna show you through the videos, we're just gonna let him spew his hate. And you're gonna watch and you can be the judge. You make your own decisions. And you'll say, you know what, Rich? It's true. It's true. You've proved beyond the shadow of a doubt that this guy is evil. So we're going to get to that. Also, you know, we like to teach you something. And tonight we're going to teach you about the Keeling curve. Have you ever heard of the Keeling curve? Tonight you're going to learn about it. And, you know, this is all, you know, what it all comes down to when you're dealing with people and you're talking about global warming and climate change. You know, we want to deal with the facts. Nothing but the facts. And tonight we're going to show you some stuff that's going to blow you away. So we're going to make a mockery of Stuart Varney, and then we're going to show you that the scientist that he was mocking we're going to show you a video from him, and he's virtually going to say, hey, these guys made it all up. And I'm talking about the emails, the East Anglia emails. So we're going to look at that tonight. Because, you know, all the climate deniers want to do is they want to raise doubt. And we want to stop them. So when they say something stupid, you know, you give them the old bada bing. Where are you getting your information from? You stop them dead in their tracks. And tonight we're going to teach you a nice little trick that's going to shut people up. You'll stop them. You're going to stop them cold. And then, at the end, we're going to look at a company called BrightSource. And BrightSource is about to go online in the Mojave Desert. And when you see, now we spoke about this in some previous shows, but when you see how these guys do it and the future for solar energy, you're going to say, man, Fox has been lying to me the whole time, and that's why we're here. That's exactly why we're here. All right, now, I've told you what we're going to tell you tonight. Now we like to go to the top of the show, and we want to show you Old Glory. And, you know, once again, I want people to think that this is going to be my legacy. So when you see the flag blowing in the breeze, when you see the flag, Judy, come on, babe. There you go. All right, so when you see the flag blowing in the breeze, what are we thinking about, guys? We're thinking about free energy. We're thinking about a win-win solution. And we're going to show you some of the stills. We got the bug up. We're going to show you some of the stills. Okay, that says win-win situation, but we want to make it a win-win solution. We also want to show you the other still with the China wall, with the Great Wall of China. Folks, this virtually says it all. When the winds of change blow, some people build walls, others build windmills. Folks, what should we be doing now? Should we be building up walls or putting up windmills? I mean, really. So anyway, when you look at that flag and you see the, nice job, Judy. When you see that flag blowing in the breeze, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to come back to camera one, and the person next to you, you're going to give them what? When you see the flag blowing in the breeze, you're going to come back to camera one and you're going to scutch them. Right? We're going to scutch them on. There we go. So when you see the flag blowing, you say to the person next to you, hey, what do you say? You give them the old scutcheroony, and then you say free energy. Why aren't we harvesting the free energy? All right, now, getting back to what I initially wanted to say when I started, we've just hit a milestone. We've just hit 400 parts per million. 400 parts per million in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now you say to yourself, 400 parts per million, that's nothing. That's insignificant. And virtually you're right. You really are right. But the one thing that's very important, without carbon dioxide, we wouldn't be here. It's that simple. It's an essential gas. But the thing is, it's an essential gas in very minuscule amounts. What we've done is we've gone over the point. Now this is a fact, and I want you to lock in on this, and you can, whenever you talk to somebody about climate change and global warming, you can take this to the bank. Right now, with the carbon dioxide being 400 parts per million in the whole history of mankind, the levels have never been as high as they are today. Now we're going back, some scientists say, you know, man has been around for about 150,000 years. Some will extend it, they'll say, well, 200,000 years. Let's take it one step further. Let's say man has been around for 250,000 years. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Still, in the whole time that man's been around, carbon dioxide levels have never been this high. As a matter of fact, if we go back to the ice core samples, and we have 800,000 years of empirical evidence, you can't argue with the evidence. The data, that's what we want, the evidence and the data. 800,000 years. It's never been this high. And folks, we could take it one step further. It's been said that it hasn't been this high in 10 million years. Now that's enough to convince me that something's wrong. I mean, something's wrong. And regardless of what people say, you know, like when last week we did the war on weather, you know, and we said, well, you know, the war on, people are going to say it's a coincidence. Hurricane Sandy was a coincidence. The drought in the Midwest was a coincidence. The fires in Colorado and California are a coincidence. When does it get to the point where the coincidences aren't coincidences anymore? And this is what we have to start thinking about. You have to start thinking about your kids. It's really simple. I mean, what are you going to do for your children's future? Are you going to sit here and be a climate denier? Or are you going to get off your fat ass and you're going to start to look at the facts and the evidence, and you're going to say, What can I do? How can I get involved? And one of the ways you can get involved is if you like what you see on this show, and if you enjoy what I tell you, and if you think other people should know, after the show, copy it. Copy it on YouTube. And when somebody gives you the business, you can paste it, onto an internet or, onto a blog. And you could say to people, what is it? Tell me what you think about this guy. All right, now, I don't want to scare everybody, but what we're going to do is we're going to break off a little bit because, I like to start the show with comedy. So we're going to go to a clip from Bill Maher, where Bill Maher lays waste to climate deniers. So, Judy, let's hit the first.
I say this because a bunch of depressing new surveys reveal that people in droves are starting to believe that global warming is a hoax. And this time, it's not just us. People are always accusing me of hating America and calling it stupid. So tonight, I'd like to take a few moments to hate England and call it stupid. Because now the Brits don't believe in global warming either. I thought they were smarter than that. This is the home of Newton and Darwin. I can't believe we let these people build our exploding oil platforms. And even scarier is why people have stopped thinking global warming is real. One major reason, pollsters say, is we had a very cold, snowy winter. Which is like saying the sun might not be real because last night it got dark. And my car is not real because I can't find my keys. And that's the problem with our obsession to always see two sides of every issue equally, especially when one side has a lot of money. It means we have to pretend there are always two truths, and the side that doesn't know anything has something to say. On this side of the debate, every scientist in the world. On the other, Mr. Potato Head. There is no debate here. It's just scientists versus non-scientists. And since the topic is science, the non-scientists don't get a vote. We shouldn't decide everything by polling the masses. This is the fallacy called argumentum ad numerum, the idea that something is true because great numbers believe it. As in, eat shit, 20 trillion flies can't be wrong. Or take this recent headline, TV weathercasters divided on global warming. Who gives a shit? My TV weathercaster is a bimbo with big tits who used to be on a soap opera on Telemundo. Mainstream media, could you please stop pitting the ignorant versus the educated and framing it as a debate? The other day, I saw a professor from the Union of Concerned Scientists face off against a distinguished expert on tea partying, whose brilliant analysis, recently published in the New England Journal of Grasping at Straws, was that we shouldn't teach climate science in schools because kids find it scary. As they should. I hope they're peeing in their pants. Because the last decade, year, and month are all the hottest on record. And then there's the floods, the killing of the oceans, Category 5 hurricanes, giant wildfires, the vanishing water supply. You know, the little things. And yet deniers say it's just a theory, as is gravity. You know, for progress to happen, certain things have to become not an issue anymore, so we can go on to the next issue. Evolution was an issue until overwhelming consensus among scientists made it not an issue. When I was 6 years old, it was an issue how babies were born. There were conflicting theories. There was no consensus. Some thought a stork brought babies. Others contended you bought them at the hospital. The Catholic boys said the Holy Ghost brought them. And one kid said that girls had sort of a, as he described it, flap in front, and that men put their penises into it. This seemed the least likely. And yet, by the time we had all reached age 11, even though none of us had actually seen the flap, the consensus of opinion was overwhelming for the penis-vagina theory. It was no longer an issue. Devastating, worldwide climate change is happening, whether you phone in for it or not. You can't vote for rain. What's real is what's real, and like it or not.
See that, guys? I mean, you know, the ignorant versus the educated. And then you want to call it a debate. It's not a debate. It's not a debate. The science is settled. All they want to do is create doubt, create confusion. And we're going to show you how they do it tonight. We're going to prove it to you. But before we do that, you know, there was another thing he said. You can't vote for rain. And it's so true. And you know, there's another thing, folks, that we got to look at very seriously. And it's a lot of the people that are the fundamentalists. You know what, folks? We can't pray away global warming either. Can't be done. So don't hide behind your faith card and say God is going to bail us out, because it ain't going to happen. We have to take control. We have to make the changes. All right, now, with the 400 parts per million, we're going to get back to do the math with Bill McKibben, and 350 parts per million on carbon dioxide. Scientists say that that amount of carbon dioxide is not compatible with human life. Let me say that again. 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the air is not compatible with human life. Folks, we're at 400. Is that telling you something? Is the light going off? You know, everybody says it's so insignificant. It's only 400 parts per million. You ever see the scales, the lady with the scales, how the scales are perfectly balanced? Well, let's say there's 10,000 grams on this side of the scale and 10,000 grams on this side of the scale. If you add 1 gram to either side, what happens? Insignificant. But in the laws of nature, everything is relative. It's all relative. If you take a cup of coffee and you put it on a table, and the temperature in the room is 72, guess what? Eventually, this is going to be 72 degrees. It's all relative. So we got to stop with the nonsense, and we got to stop fooling each other. Now, how did we come up with this 350 parts per million, 400 parts per million? And this is the learning section, guys. It's called the Keeling curve. Have you ever heard of the Keeling curve? Probably not, because I never heard about it until 2 days ago when I was looking up the information for the show. I tripped over it and I said, wow, this is great. So anyway, we're going to show you the Keeling curve, and then I'm going to show you a statement that you can make when you show people a Keeling curve. So Judy, let's roll it.
If it's wrong to wreck the climate, it's wrong to profit from that wreckage.
2012 was the hottest year in the United States since scientists started keeping records.
My guest, Bill McKibben, our nation's leading environmentalist.
We're building the kind of political movement that will change things. As of tonight, we're taking on the fossil fuel industry directly. These companies are a rogue force. We're no longer at the point of trying to stop global warming, too late for that. We're trying to keep it from becoming a complete and utter calamity. Carbon in the atmosphere greater than 350 parts per million is not compatible with life on Earth. That's strong language for scientists to use. Today, the atmosphere is 395 parts per million. The fossil fuel industry has 5 times more coal and oil and gas than is safe to burn.
They are locking us into a future that we can't survive.
This is the biggest emergency the human family has faced since it came out of the caves.
We are at a tipping point in America's history.
If they carry out their business plan, the planet tanks.
Tar sands are the turning point in our fossil fuel addiction.
I say it's criminal, and I say that not lightly.
We subsidize the fossil fuel industries.
And that is just financially and morally bankrupt.
We have to send a message that we are going to hold them liable.
We have a moral catastrophe on our hands.
What's at stake now is civilization itself.
This is the only question that will matter in the long run.
Oops, wrong video, but it doesn't matter because that's the way it's supposed to be. But you know what? We're not going to lose pace. We're going to go right to the next video. Judy, let's do the Keeling curve now. Hit it.
Partly I wanted the challenge of making instruments work. As well as trying to study the chemistry of the Earth, I wanted to make sure I could do something that had to do with constructing instruments. And so I built a device to make the measurements of the concentration of carbon dioxide that was called a manometer. And the manometer I found by reading in the literature something that had been built a long time earlier. And I made some changes because there was new technology, better ground glass stopcocks and so on, and particularly liquid nitrogen was available. Liquid nitrogen being something by which I could freeze out the carbon dioxide rather than do it the way it was being done in Scandinavia, where they were absorbing it in a caustic solution and then trying to release it from the solution. And that was a chemical method which was not as precise as the one I had. So with this precise manometer and the use of liquid nitrogen, I was able to make these measurements quite accurately. So now I compared these measurements with what was going on in Sweden, and I found that they weren't concordant. And I had an opportunity to take some of these, well, I haven't told you the device itself. It was a glass vessel about this big around, and it had a closure at the top, so I could actually pump the air out of it and make it a vacuum. And then all they had to do was to turn a little valve on the top, stopcock it's called, and the air would go and come down in the flask. And then you'd close the stopcock and you could send it anywhere. I was very fortunate that as I was doing this work, there was an internationally organized program to study geophysics, particularly the ionosphere, and for radio propagation. But it was enlarged to be a much more ambitious program, and it allowed for exploration in many different ways, including oceanographic ships going out all around the world and setting up locations to make measurements. We could call these observing stations. And I got a chance to join this program. It was called the International Geophysical Year. And This wasn't so long after World War II. It was 1957 when it actually occurred, and the beginning of the planning that I got involved with was 1956, 1 year after I had made this discovery about our measurements being different than the people's measurements made in other places by different techniques. So I was given a chance to join this program, and even though, to get back to the fact that I was not very old yet, I was about 26 years old when this started, that I had this opportunity to command the samples be taken in quite distant places, including the South Pole and ice flows in the Arctic Ocean. Now that's really an opportunity which would not come very often. And so the beginning of the International Geophysical Year, we sent some samples to a lot of different places, as I just described, also tropical locations, and they all came back with nearly the same result. In fact, it was so much the same result that when they were published in a bulletin of the International Geophysical Year, which was coming out to let people know what happened, somebody said it must be that the instrument I was using was stuck, and it was just making the same measurement all the time. But of course we checked that out and it wasn't true, and so we went ahead and kept making these measurements. And part of the program came about because I was invited to go to the United States Weather Bureau, which had an Office of Meteorological Research. It wasn't a very big organization, but it did have a chance to take part in this International Geophysical Year. So I went to the director at his invitation and told him about what I was doing. I showed him some of my measurements. And he said, "We have just recently set up an observatory up on a mountain in Hawaii, and this would be a wonderful place to make these measurements." And he was very ambitious to get this station to be more recognized by doing as many things as they could. And so he supported the idea of going out there and not just measuring it by taking a sample now and then in a bottle and bringing it back, but putting an instrument there that would measure it continuously. And meanwhile, I had found a company in Pasadena, California. This company had an instrument, and so they lent me an instrument, and I was able to test it out and find out that it was probably good enough to make these measurements. And so, because of the International Geophysical Year, I was able to buy them. So it was expensive, and yet we were able to buy 4 of these instruments. We put one on a ship, we put one in the Antarctic, we put one at Mauna Loa Observatory, and we kept one for ourselves to be able to see how they worked. And that launched a program of making continuous measurements, and the Mauna Loa Observatory began the measurements in 1958. It took nearly the end of the International Geophysical Year period before it got started. But once it was there, it was clear it was going to make some interesting results. What I was trying to lead up to was that the concentration variation that we measured at Mauna Loa Observatory was about 6 parts per million between summer and winter. And that was within the error bar, the error of what the measurements were being made in Scandinavia, and so they couldn't detect it. But it could have been detected long before that if they had been more diligent about checking the precision of what they were doing. So we found that it was indeed varying with the seasons. The other remarkable thing was that we found that as we traced it into the second year, it was a little bit higher. And by the third year, it was quite clear that it was going to be higher each year. At least it was being higher each year than it was before for the same time of the year. So we were getting an increase from year to year. And it didn't take that many years because it was going up by nearly a part per million per year. So we had to have that precision of better than 1 part per million. But with that precision, we saw that it was trending upward as well as oscillating between the seasons.
You know, guys, we always let the videos play through so that this way, you know, we can pay dues to whoever did the video. And that was done by the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. I mean, these are guys who are committed to getting it right. And, you know, you see Mauna Loa in Hawaii, and I was always wondering why they used that, you know, as a reference point. Well, because that's where the National Weather Service put their stuff. And as you can see, it's all about the data. The data is the evidence, and that's what they're in pursuit of, the evidence, and not the BS that you get from everywhere else. Now, when you're talking to somebody about the Keeling curve, let's say you're at the water cooler and somebody's talking about global warming. You want to stop them dead in their tracks. You know what you say to them? You say, look them right in the eye and you say, you're familiar with the Keeling curve, aren't you? And you don't say a word. Leave it. You're familiar with the Keeling curve, aren't you? That demands a response. It's a yes or no. And what's going to happen is you're going to find out that very few people will be aware of it. And then you say, well, you want to find out about the Keeling curve? And then you tell them to come watch the show. Tell them to come on YouTube and they can get an education. But now you know what the Keeling curve is. And like I said, until 2 days ago, I had never heard of it. So this is an education for everybody. All right, now we're going to go to part 2. And this is the part with Stuart Varney. And as I said, I'm sitting home and I'm on the computer and I got Fox playing in the background. And what do I hear from Stuart Varney? And guys, I really tried. Believe me when I tell you, I tried so hard to find this clip on YouTube and I couldn't find it. But I mean, maybe in a couple of days it'll be available. I don't know. But Stuart Varney comes down and he does a clip called Who's Ruining the Economy? And on previous shows, we've shown you those clips. Well, anyway, he comes up with an absurd statement. And he says, you know, we've spent all this money, we spent billions of dollars on green energy. And this one project, we spent $182 billion and we created 86 jobs. So it cost $10 million a job. And I said, son of a... So that got me going. So what do? I go on to, and Judy, if you can hit us with the loan guarantee solicitation announcement from the Department of Energy, the still, please. All right, folks, this is where the money for the 1705 fund comes from. This is the fund that the money for Solyndra came from. Solyndra, Judy, you can come back to me now. Solyndra is the one that Fox loves to always, oh, you see what happened to Solyndra? Look at all the money we lost. That's not true. This is a loan program that has been authorized, and the reason for this loan program, applicants are invited to apply for loan guarantees from the United States Department of Energy. And there's certain parameters, but the background, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, the Recovery Act, created Section 1705 of Title 17 to promote the rapid deployment of renewable energy projects, electric power transmission projects, and leading-edge biofuels projects. The 1705 program, the primary goals of the Recovery Act are job preservation and creation, infrastructure investment, energy deficiency, and science, something the Republicans don't know about, science, assistance to the unemployed, and state and local fiscal stabilizations. So you see where the money came from. And folks, believe it or not, in the 1705 fund, the one that Fox claims is so disastrous, so far only 1% of the investments have failed. 1%. Now think about that. So they always say, well, Obama's always picking the losers. Obama's not picking anything. It's the Department of Energy that picks it. But what? They just want to hate Obama, so what do? Obama created that bull. All right, now, we're going to show you, Judy, can we go to the still for Ivanpah now? Now, this is the Ivanpah project. This is in the Mojave Desert. This project cost $1.6 billion. For the $1.6 billion, it created 86 permanent jobs. So if you think about, and Judy, you can switch back to me. If you think back, 1.6 billion and they created 86 jobs. Well, now you can see where they can come up with an absurd figure, like $10 million per job. Can you imagine the bonehead sitting home watching this on TV? Hey, Stella, look what they're doing with our money. They're taking our money and they're spending it on this green energy that doesn't work. Stella, let me tell you something, sweetheart. That's not the truth. They're not telling you. They don't want to tell you the truth. Because if they wanted to tell you the truth, they would show you. So what's going on with Ivanpah? And we're going to show you this at the end, all right? They spent $1.6 billion. They created 86 permanent jobs. They didn't tell you about the 2,100 construction jobs that were created, and they didn't tell you that they built a plant that has an expected lifetime of almost 30 years. So for 30 years, this project is going to be supplying enough electricity to serve 140,000 homes, day and night. And we'll show you how they can do it day and night because we'll show you the video and we'll show you the technology. So this is what gets me going. How you see Stuart Varney come on Fox News and tote the BS that he does and not give you all the facts and figures. They just want to give you the Republican agenda, the fake science, the fake facts, so they can fool the simple folks. We're not falling for it anymore. All right, now we're going to show you how the Foxtitudes perpetuate the climate denial claim with this hacked email crap. And you'll say, well, Rich, why is the hacked email so important? It's very simple. Because the hacked emails go against the data. It raises questions, confusion, uncertainty. And that's what they want. And why do they want uncertainty? Because if the whole thing can't be proven, we don't have to spend any money to fix the problem. Fox hates your kids, and we're going to show you how. Judy, roll a clip.
A lot of people are changing their minds about the theory of man-made global warming on the heels of a major scientific scandal concerning researchers and their behavior. White House correspondent Wendell Gore reports this renewed skepticism comes as President Obama prepares to attend the UN's climate change conference next week.
By stopping in Copenhagen on his way to receive the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, President Obama will save the energy it would take to make two separate trips. But attending the start of the climate conference, experts predict, won't give him a very strong impact.
You're not going to get that the second or third day of this meeting. You're going to get it at the very end.
For the White House, the timing is secondary.
I think the president believes that that a visit happening at the beginning is just as important as it would be at any point to getting that deal going quicker.
And it's the deal that has conservatives worried.
At least no bad deal for the American economy. That may mean no deal. Sometimes it's important to have the courage to do nothing.
Ben Lieberman of the Heritage Foundation believes emails leaked or hacked from scientists at England's East Anglia University undercut the whole scientific claim for man's impact on global warming.
This raises questions about some of the very UN science that forms the basis of what's going to be discussed. We're now learning that some of the data in that report had to be altered quite a bit in order to show more warming.
The president's climate czar, former EPA Administrator Carol Browner, says she's sticking with scientists who believe in humanity's influence, and the White House also shrugged off the emails.
I think there's no real scientific basis for the dispute of this.
University scientists say raw data from the 1980s was thrown out. The scientists say they kept something called value-added data, but skeptics say that amounts to a plea to trust us that it doesn't differ much from the raw data. Despite a recent decline in global temperatures, the trend over the past 150 years is clearly up. But the timing of the email scandal, Heather Conley says, is perfect for skeptics.
But it does continue to throw this debate out there, and for those who want to use it as an excuse, either for action or inaction, they can point to different parts of the debate.
Aide said the president's made progress with China and India in recent days, and China has promised to cut greenhouse gas emissions, but based on economic output, which means if their economy slows, emissions will rise. Meanwhile, India wants more aid than the developed world is likely to provide to cope with 400 million people still living without electricity. Brett?
Wendell, thank you. Well, let's get some thoughts now from senior political analyst Britt Hume on the scandal some are calling ClimateGate. Good evening, Britt.
Hi, Brett. As you heard in Wendell Goler's report, a large collection of emails exchanged among weather researchers at the University of East Anglia in England have gotten out and caused a scandal. The reason that university's climate research unit matters is that it has been heavily relied upon by the UN in reaching its alarmist conclusions about the threat of global warming. The reason it's a scandal is that the emails vividly portray leading scientists there scheming to suppress or discredit data and analysis contrary to their dire predictions. The whole idea that the Earth is warming dangerously and that man, by burning carbon fuels, is the cause, rests on computerized projections of future temperatures based on vast amounts of previously observed climate data. But there's a huge problem. There's been no apparent increase in global temperatures over the past 11 years, and the computerized climate models fail to predict this, and the global warming alarmists can't explain it. The obvious conclusion would be that there's something wrong with the computer models. Now it has come out that the original raw data used to create these models has been destroyed or otherwise disposed of. The response of the alarmists to these revelations has been that the emails were taken out of context and that the destruction of all that raw data was done for space reasons. There's a one-word answer to all of that: please. Brett?
Britt, do you think that these revelations have the potential to slow or even stop the push for action on climate change?
Well, the momentum for that was already declining because global warming, climate change has been dropping lower and lower in people's list of priorities for a long time now. And doubts about whether man is causing it and about the whole theory of it have been rising. So this can only further that and only add to the sense that this is not a politically urgent matter and that perhaps it may all even be a fraud.
All right, Britt. Thanks.
I love the way they build it up. It's a revelation. A revelation? Holy, it's like they found the Holy Grail. You know what I mean? And did you also notice the other choice of words that they use? A scandal. This is a scandal. No, this is your scandal. This ain't a scandal. And we're going to prove to you it's not a scandal. But you know, I love it raises questions. No, you want to raise questions. The data doesn't raise any questions. Now, I think by now you guys are starting to catch on. Did you notice there was a guy in there called Ben Lieberman? And did you notice where he was from? He was from the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation. Haven't we heard of them before? Didn't we hear Bernie Sanders talk about the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, the Reason Foundation? These are all the Mercatus organization. These are all think tanks that the Koch brothers have helped fund. Why? So that we can raise questions, uncertainty. Now we're going to get to the point, and I tell you, if Stuart Varney was here now, I don't know if the double reverse backhand bada bing bitch slap would be even good enough for him. Because after I got done with this, I'd probably kick him right in the Galaducci's. And after you watch this video, you're gonna feel the same way. Judy, roll it, babe.
Threaten you? Thousands of hacked emails showing global warming scientists blasting researchers who do not buy into their doomsday scenarios. One of the scientists threatening to, and I quote now, beat the crap out of my next guest. Pat Michaels from the Cato Institute joins me now. Pat, welcome to the program.
Hey, I'm still here.
Yes, you are. Congratulations. Now, these are emails from within the climate change community, and I want to just quote one of them. Here it is. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This email says, "We can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't." That implies that the evidence for global warming is rather weak, or that some evidence is being suppressed therein. What do you say?
What's going on with that quote is Kevin Trenberth from the National Center for Atmospheric Research is saying that our computer models did not anticipate the fact that it hasn't warmed for the last 10 years or so. And in private, to all his colleagues who call themselves the climate community, he says, it's a travesty. If you interview him in public, he's not going to say that. And that's the nature of what's going on in these emails.
There is another email, isn't there another email where they're talking about a trick, and someone is boasting of using a statistical trick to make the warming look steeper in recent years?
Yes, it was a phrase called hide the decline. And Phil Jones, who wrote that from the University of East Anglia, has said, yes, indeed, he did write that. He said it didn't know what it referred to. He knows darn well what it referred to because he's a co-author on a lot of papers who use this data that he is referring to. It's tree ring data that diverges from the global temperature around 1960. And in order to make it look better, they decided not to extend the tree ring data.
I just want to move on real fast to the threat.
Yeah.
Let me quote that one. "I'm really sorry that you have to go through all this stuff, Phil. Next time I see Pat Michaels at a scientific meeting, I'll be tempted to beat the crap out of him. Very tempted." Now, how do you feel about that? You're on the receiving end of this threat. How do you feel?
Yeah, Ben Sanders not a small guy either. That shows that there's a very, very thin skin. All these emails reveal a remarkable thin skin, and that tells me that something's very wrong. The real problem here is the emails showing these guys trying to intimidate the editors of the major scientific journals and succeeding. In other words, keeping me and my friends and my colleagues from publishing in the refereed literature.
But the bottom line here, Pat, if you look across the spectrum of all these hacked into emails, do they show that some in the climate community are beginning to have second thoughts about whether global warming exists or not? Are they having doubts?
It's not whether warming exists or not. It's the seriousness of it and the threat that is presented by people who merely say, you know, it might not be the end of the world. By the way, the other side's going to say this story is going to go away. No, it's not. There is so much in here. It's like Watergate. Things are going to come up and up and up and up for the next year.
What are you going to do about it?
I'm just going to sit here and read agog. I first thought it was nothing then my jaw dropped and wound up on the floor on Friday night.
So you got these, you were advised of what was going on, you started to read them on Friday night. Are there literally thousands of these emails?
There are, because many of them are long streams of emails. Yeah, there's thousands. There are things like attempts to get the University of Wisconsin to get rid of my PhD thesis because somebody said X was wrong with it. Well, I looked at it, and indeed what was alleged wasn't even true. And this was emailed to some of the biggest climate scientists in the world, trying to take away my degree. This is ridiculous.
Okay, it's hard stuff. Pat Michaels, a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now my next guest says, forget those emails. Here's the deal. Global warming is a very real global problem. Dan Weiss from the Center for American Progress. Dan, welcome to the program. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Stuart.
Look, why, if these emails suggest hiding some evidence the evidence being that the Earth has not warmed in the last 10 years, why put these emails out? Why are you hiding them if global warming does exist? Sounds like it's an attempt to suppress what's really going on.
Well, first of all, Stuart, as you know, those emails were from hacking into the computers by, we believe, some Russian source. They haven't even been authenticated. There's a more fundamental point.
Dan, do you contest them? Do you contest them?
There's a more fundamental point.
Are thousands of emails a pack of lies?
I'm not involved in cybersecurity, so I don't know if they're authentic or not.
Are you questioning their authenticity?
It's unknown at this time. But here's the more fundamental point,
the argument, no. The fundamental point here is that we have evidence here, thousands of emails, which you may or may not contest, which suggest that inside the climate community there is a great deal of threat going on, threatening the editors of magazines and threatening other people who disagree with their point of view, to the point where it raises the doubt that there is unity amongst the climate community, that there is indeed global warming. That's it.
Stuart, may I have a chance to speak, please?
Yes.
The greatest threat isn't about these emails or to Pat Michaels. The greatest threat is that global warming pollution will continue unabated and cause irreversible harm to our planet. Let me read you a quote from the U.S. climate change program started by President George W. Bush. It says, quote, "Global warming is unequivocal and primarily human-induced." So that is what the threat is. It's not whether or not these emails that may or may not be authentic or that may or may not be altered.
So you are questioning the authenticity of the emails. You are questioning the authenticity of the emails, and then you're saying that they are not relevant, even though they attempt to hide evidence that the globe is not warming for the last 10 years. Look at this. We can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't. Now, you may or may not contest whether that's true, but that is what we've got on our screen. That's what's being said. Those are emails. They directly refute your point.
Stuart, if you want to have me on, let me respond. You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Here are the facts. The U.S. Global Warming Program says global warming is unequivocal and human-induced.
This is not an argument about whether global warming exists. It's not an argument about whether global warming exists. It is an argument about whether you people should be threatening those who disagree with you.
Reported out a number of impacts. Today, the Associated Press reported out a number of impacts of global warming that are happening right now. Sea level rise up 1.5 inches. Our average temperatures up nearly half a degree over the last dozen years. We've got reservoirs in the Southwest that were full 10 years ago and now are only half full.
Dan,
we've got on and on. The number of acres burned in wildfires have doubled.
You're in retreat.
Okay, that's the threat, Stuart, not whether or not these emails are authentic or are complete.
All right, from my point of view, here's what I see. I see you guys in retreat. I see that the Copenhagen meeting is a bust, and I think you'll admit that. Cap and trade legislation has been pushed well into next year and may completely disappear. Public opinion is beginning to run against you, and there is a very strong feeling that your argument and your support has peaked and is going into reverse. I think you're being very defensive here.
I'm defending the science. You're talking a bunch of emails that may or may not be authentic or may or may not be unadulterated. Here's the thing, Stuart. A group after science group, the American Academy of Advancement of Science, the National Academy of Sciences, our own science program started by George W. Bush, the International Panel on Climate Change, all of them come to the same conclusion. Then you have a bunch of emails that may or may not be authentic, questioning very small parts of the whole thing.
Well, Dan,
the reality is, the planet is warming. The question is, do we want to act or not?
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, but, you know, I don't know whether we can really question the authenticity of those emails. We had just had Pat Michaels on. He was threatened in those emails.
Did Pat Michaels write any of those emails?
He was threatened in them. Are you saying that it was a lie?
Have you gone to each of the people who authored the emails?
Let's have it out here. Are you saying flat out that they were a lie, and that's why you won't respond directly to them?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
I don't know whether or not they were. No one has... The authors of those emails have not come forward and say, yes, I wrote that.
Thousands of them revealed. And you cannot dismiss that
how
as
did we
being
get
inauthentic.
them? They were by Russian cyber criminals hacking into the computer. How do we know that they're authentic?
There goes your credibility,
We have no way to know.
Dan,
the real threat isn't the emails. The real threat is global warming pollution.
Pity that Copenhagen meeting didn't get off the ground. Dan, a pleasure. Thank you very much, Dan.
It hasn't started yet. It's scheduled to start in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it won't achieve a thing. Nothing at all, and you know it. It's a bust. Got some spare cash? Then Uncle Sam wants you. And it's like eBay for big-time rich people, millionaires, ahead of tax hikes on the way. How the mega-rich are on...
All right, now, you notice how Stuart Varney wouldn't let him talk? Just wouldn't let him talk. And why is that? Because that's the way they are. We're going to show you how it even gets worse. And watch what Ed Begley does to Stuart Varney. He does a bitch-slapping job that I'm proud of. Roll it, Judy.
I think the science is very clear in global warming. What these statements are, we'll go down the path and see what happens in peer-reviewed studies. Those are the key words here, Stuart. Peer-reviewed studies. If these scientists have done something wrong, it will be found out and their peers will determine it. I don't think geologists should write papers about being an actor or a newscaster, nor should... don't get your information from me, folks, or any newscaster. Get it from people with PhD after the name. Peer-reviewed studies are the key words. And if it comes out in peer-reviewed studies that there are some cooking the books, that will come out.
Well, you know, Senator Inhofe has a list of 700 climate scientists who say this global warming, they've got problems with the whole theory of global warming. I put it to you.
There's not 700 climate scientists. There's weathermen and other people in there. There are some climate scientists.
The science is not in.
It is in.
No.
Stuart, quit saying that.
No, the debate is not over, sir.
Peer-reviewed studies. Go to Science Magazine, folks, Nature Magazine. Go to somebody you trust, National Geographic. Don't get it from you or me. Don't get it from Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck.
No.
Scientists, people with PhD.
Okay, all right, okay.
Weathermen, not weathermen.
Okay, listen
science, climate.
Listen to this. I had a Princeton professor on my program.
What does he have?